There are moments in history when silence itself becomes an act of rebellion. Moments when one man's refusal to bow marks the beginning of a quiet revolution. It happened during a cold morning inspection at Fort Redstone, a military base known less for its victories and more for the shadow of fear that hung over its ranks. Soldiers there didn't speak freely. They saluted out of survival, not respect.
And at the center of that fear stood Captain Rourke, a decorated officer with a venomous pride. Under his command, rules were weapons. Orders were instruments of humiliation. He demanded not discipline, but submission.
And among his recruits stood Private Eli Mercer, a man too quiet to notice, too calm to hate, and too steady to break. He came from a family of farmers, not soldiers, but in his eyes burned a truth that outranked every medal in sight.
That morning, as the men stood at attention, Rourke arrived, inspecting uniforms with his usual cruelty. Then, spotting a recruit's torn sleeve, he barked an order, not to the one who wore it, but to Eli. "Swap jackets, now!" Rourke commanded. Eli hesitated. The order was clear, but wrong. It meant falsifying inspection records, masking the captain's negligence. Around him, no one breathed. Disobeying meant ruin. Obeying meant dishonor. Eli looked up, his voice calm. "Sir, that's against regulation." And in that instant, a storm began to form.
The parade ground froze. Rourke turned, disbelief flickering into rage. "What did you say, Private?" Eli's gaze didn't waver. "Orders must be lawful, sir." The captain stepped closer, face inches away, voice trembling with fury. "You think you know the code better than your superior?" A whisper passed through the line of soldiers, a sound like wind cutting across steel. Then came the slap, sharp, echoing, final. Eli didn't flinch. He simply straightened, eyes locked forward, voice steady as stone. "Respect, sir, is earned by example." The words landed harder than any blow. Rourke's hand fell. His authority, for that brief, unbearable second, shattered like glass on the frozen ground. And before the watching ranks of his own men, Captain Rourke realized the unthinkable, that the chain of fear he'd forged so carefully had just been broken by one man's calm defiance.
No one moved. The air seemed to hold its breath. Even the flags above the base stopped moving, as if unwilling to interrupt what had just unfolded. Rourke turned, his voice caught between rage and humiliation. "You're finished, Private! Report to my office at once!" But even as he spoke, a figure emerged from the observation tower, Major Calloway, the division commander, who had witnessed the entire exchange. "Captain Rourke," he said, voice calm but heavy, "that will not be necessary." Every soldier straightened. Calloway stepped forward. "I've seen enough. Your conduct is a disgrace to the uniform you wear. Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty." Rourke's face drained of color. Eli stood silent, eyes fixed ahead, not gloating, not victorious, merely present. The major turned to him. "Private Mercer, what made you speak when everyone else stayed silent?" Eli's reply was quiet, almost uncertain. "Sir, silence can protect a man's life, but not his honor." That line spread across the base faster than orders could travel. In the mess halls, the barracks, the training fields, men repeated it, each time softer, like a prayer. For years, soldiers at Fort Redstone had followed commands out of fear. That morning, they learned there was another kind of discipline, the kind born from conscience. And as the sun broke over the horizon, something unseen shifted in the air. Respect, the kind no captain could command, began to return. Moral: true courage isn't found in obedience, but in the quiet defense of what's right, even when no one else stands beside you. Months passed. Captain Rourke vanished from military records, reassigned quietly, his name spoken only as a warning. But Private Eli Mercer remained. He never sought promotion, never retold the story himself. Yet others did, again and again, until it became part of the base's whispered history. New recruits were told of the man who refused, the soldier who spoke one line that ended an era of fear. Years later, when Eli retired, a letter arrived from the same Major Calloway. It contained no rank, no order, only a single sentence. Discipline can be taught, Mercer, but integrity must be witnessed. Eli folded the letter carefully and placed it in his old service chest. To his children, he said only this: never raise your voice to prove your strength. Speak truth once, and let silence do the rest. And so his story lived on, not in medals or monuments, but in the unseen courage of those who learned that strength is quiet and defiance can be sacred. Because sometimes the most powerful rebellion is the refusal to betray yourself.